Hello, everybody. Time to get these on. Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Yes, it is not Sunday. You are quite correct, Peter. It is not Sunday. It is Friday. I am sitting in for Johnny Give tonight. And so here we are. And I actually have a talking point. Normally I don't. Normally I forget. And we end up in a situation where I don't know what I'm doing. But not so tonight. I actually do know what I'm doing. So I'm sitting in for Johnny Guy. It's his daughter Amanda's birthday today. So I basically said, look, you go and enjoy yourself and have a great time at your daughter's birthday and have a great family time together. And I'll do the show instead. So we're taking a little bit of a break from what Johnny's been doing with loops and stuff like that. We'll get back to that. I would suggest probably on Monday, I would think, is when Johnny will get back to that. So I may or may not do a stream again on Sunday. We'll have to wait and see. Not entirely sure. Because I wasn't expecting to do a show tonight. So... But hey, it's cool. I don't mind. It's good fun. So you're probably wondering what the music was that I was playing at the start. I don't know how well it came through on the stream, by the way. I hope it came through okay, because I know that stream quality can be a little bit hit or miss. And I do apologize for that. It's just the nature of my internet. There's nothing I can do about that. At the moment, anyway. Until I can get... much faster upload speeds and everything else. I've had to completely uninstall OBS because it was making my computer poop itself. Bobby says it's loud. Is it still loud now? I mean, I've turned everything down, so hopefully it shouldn't be. Music should be quite nice and very low in the background now. But yes, so that's basically the story. I had to completely uninstall OBS. So for the I can't even do like quick videos at the moment because basically there was a major issue with OBS and it was making my computer poop itself. So that's completely uninstalled, and hopefully sometime in the future I might be able to get all of this broadband stuff squared away and actually use OBS to do this. But for now, this is what we have. So tonight, folks, we are dealing with mixing vocals. So that is the plan for this evening, mixing vocals. So we are going to we're going to take a look at an old song of mine, which I do actually have set up here. And we are going to take a look at how I go about mixing vocals. Not everybody has the same methodology as me, but this is the methodology that I use that works for me, that I've used for a good number of years, and I've perfected it over the years. I've got better at it, and I've developed it quite a bit, particularly in recent years. I do it a little bit differently now than I used to, and I get better quality vocals as a result. So, you know, I'm continuing to learn and get better at what I do as a mix engineer. Nesron says, what program are you using to do your live stream? I'm not using OBS and I'm not using Wirecast or anything like that. I'm using Google Hangouts on Air because of the nature of my broadband. My broadband here is not much good, so this is the best I can do at the moment until such time as I can get better quality broadband. So I apologize for the picture occasionally being pixelated and out of focus, and sometimes the audio being a bit crap. But hopefully one day that will improve. But for now, hopefully it is the quality of the teaching that will surpass the quality of the broadband and the quality of the internet. And hopefully we'll all be able to get past that, and hopefully you guys will still get something just as valuable out of this. Let's see, who have we got here? We've got 23 people in here already, and we are 8 minutes in. I'm very, very impressed. So James Hall, he was first off the mark. I don't know if you're still here, James, but you came to the show 20 minutes early, which is very cool. So you've been warming the seats for everybody. And he says hello. Don Hamer's here. Just Bob, Stephen Greenwood, Rainer Pandolfi is here. Good to see you, folks. And good old Bobby Booth, who is ever faithful at attending pretty much every live stream that Jonny has done, that I have done, and Dave Vignola. And he's one of those guys that goes to everything, and he is a sponge for absorbing information, and that's fantastic. So Bobby, I completely and utterly commend you, my friend. Peter says, it's not Sunday, is it? No, it is not. Fred Grover is here. He says hello. Jeffrey Burr, Low Ends is here. J.W. Embry, all the faithful home studio trainer gang are here. John Anderson is here. My good friend Vachi, sorry, got your name wrong there, mate. From Recording Studio 9, he is here, all the way over in Australia. I hope it's a nice hot sunny day there for you. John Wilkins is here. Who else do we have? Nezron 1887, who asked about the live stream, is here. Let's see. Rainer says, I can't capture sound for the computer with OBS, and you even have two interfaces. Yeah, there's a particular technique. You have to set your second interface to receive the sum of your live mic, Studio One, and every other audio, and then you have to set your screen capture software or your live streaming encoder to listen to the audio for that second interface. So basically your second interface is a summing interface effectively, and that's how you have to set it up. Just Bob says no picture here, just your studio banner. Yeah, Just Bob, you probably want to refresh the stream, and you should be all good to go. James says he's still here. Good. JWM says no problems with pixels, sound, etc. Reminds me of my time in the 60s. Yeah, it's not great technology, but it's the best that I can do right now. So that's just what we have to live with. And Bachi says my OBS doesn't work either. Yes. The funny thing I had with OBS, I know Johnny uses it very successfully, and Dave uses it very successfully. The thing I could until recently use it for making like a quick video if I needed to answer a question. If I needed to answer a question in one of the Facebook groups real quick with a little demo, I could do that with OBS and it would work fine. However, tonight, in fact, today, this afternoon, I was trying to do that to answer somebody's question, and I thought it recorded fine. And when I tried to play it back, it was playing at basically 1 frame per second for a 2.5-minute video. It was ridiculous. So I closed that playback down, and it totally made all my audio disappear for some reason. So I think there's a conflict between Presonus's universal control and OBS. And I've yet to figure out what that is. So we just have to leave OBS for now. Doug Lyons asks, what's the topic is? Well, the topic is in the subject header for the stream here. It says, mixing vocals to shine, which is the best the best title I could come up with. I'm not very good at titles. Riffman Rob says, late for class. Yeah, well, you know what? You're going to get a tardy ticket for you there, Riffman. Too many more of those and you'll have a detention. I'm only kidding. Nisran asks, is there an internal way to sum your sound to OBS? You can use the... If you're on a Mac, you have it probably a bit easier because you can aggregate devices. You can aggregate audio devices, which means you can internally sum the audio that your DAW uses into an aggregate device. You can do that internally inside the Mac. You cannot do that on a Windows computer, though. On a PC, you can't do that. So you either have to use a piece of software, something like a piece of software like Voice Meter, which is like a virtual ASIO driver. You can use that. Or for me, the easiest way is to do it with 2 interfaces, and you sum one into the other. So basically, I'm taking my outputs from my audio box USB, which is my main audio sound card for my computer and everything. So all my Windows sounds, Studio One, everything goes through that. Skype, the works, goes through my audio box. So I'm taking physical outputs from there into my Presonus monitor station, which is over here. You can't see it, it's out of shot. And then the main outputs of that are going into my speakers, and then a second set of outputs goes from the monitor station into my second interface, which is an Alesis interface. And then I have whatever screen capture software I'm using, be that OBS or Camtasia. Those softwares are listening to that second interface, and that's how that works. Because you see what happens with ASIO, because you're using ASIO protocol every time you open up Studio One. What happens is that it takes over the control of the entire audio device, and you cannot have another piece of software that needs the audio device to use it. It just won't work. So that's why you have 2. And doing it that way, it means that you're not using any RAM by having another piece of software running to do that for you, to do that kind of virtual driver thing for you. So having 2 interfaces means that you are just running cables, literally, from one into the other. Fred says it'd be great to see the way you've done it with the cables, with the two interfaces. That way we see the hookup. Camtasia is awesome for recording. Yes, it is. Let me see. Is this going to be easy to show? Possibly. Hang on, let me see if I can get the camera without wrecking it. So let's see. I need to actually open up my other screen here. There's me. Hello. So this is what we do. That's as tight as I can pull this thing. There's the audio box right there. And the outputs at the back are going all the way over this way to the, first of all, to the monitor station over here. And then the pair of outputs at the back here is then going into this guy here. And this is the interface that Camtasia or OBS or whatever software you like, that is using that interface. And it's, as you can see, it's literally physical plugs going into the inputs there. And that way, it just means that there's no extra RAM load on the computer. Oh, I knew this was going to go horribly, horribly, horribly wrong. There we go. Oh, I actually got that back pretty good. So, so that's how I do it with the virtual cables. No, with the literal cables, not the virtual cables. All right, so we are 17 minutes in. Let's make a start, shall we? Next one says that's the one voice meter. Yes, voice meter banana. Yes, you can use that. Personally, I personally think it's better to use two interfaces. And I'm just trying to straighten up this camera a little bit. There we go. I personally think it's better to do. Skip is here and he says, "Oops, wrong channel." Yeah, I personally think it's better to do two interfaces and use cables. Fred says, "Thank you for the view, and that is a nice setup. Possible to do it without the monitor station?" It is. However, if you're plugging literally outputs into inputs, you can run the risk of getting some. Certainly, I did. I had an issue where I got very strange hums and buzzes. Like all of my videos, my early videos, if you go and watch my early videos, my Studio One version 2 videos, you will hear, if you turn the volume up a little bit, you will hear that there's a kind of going on in the background. I have no idea what that is. But as soon as I got the monitor station in the middle of that circuit, all of that went away. Don't ask me why. I don't know. But that's what happened. So now my videos don't have any hums or anything like that in it. So yeah, the monitor station somehow cleans up the audio. I don't know how it does it. Don says the monitor station is awesome. Just got one about 3 months ago, and I love it. Yes, it is. It's a fantastic device. I could not do what I do without it. And if such time as PreSonus develop a third version of this device, I will be getting it. No question. All right, let's get into, it's 20 minutes past, let's get into doing some vocal mixing, shall we? This is where I have to remember to share the screen. Let's see. Let's go over here and let's share entire screen. Hit that button there. Let's go over here. Now, at this point, I can no longer see the chat. So I will be flipping in and out like this. iSpike says, I can't get the audio from Pro Tools to play through OBS on a Mac. Yeah, you probably need to aggregate a device there, iSpike, so that OBS is listening to the aggregate device, because it will be fighting for use of the your main interface. That's the nature of ASIO. All right. So here we are. in Studio One, and this is my song Chanel from my EP last year, a 2016 EP called Belonging to Tomorrow. That's what it's called. For a second, I couldn't remember what I called it. So let's get into it. Now, a lot of you will know that the way I mix is I start over here on the main outs, master fader, mix bus, whatever you want to call it. I tend to call it mix bus. But you can call it whatever you want. You can call it Penelope if you really want to. But this is where I start my mix here. Before I get into anything else, before I put any plugins on any channels or any buses, I start over here and I start with compression. Just a little bit of compression, nothing major. So we're talking, low ratio, high threshold, 30 millisecond attack, 100 millisecond release, using the stock Studio One compressor, so we're not adding any color whatsoever to it. If I wanted to, I could use one of the Slate bus compressors that would, give me some nice color, or I could use a tape machine or something like that. Absolutely. You can do those things. You can put those kind of things on the mix bus, and I would encourage you to do that, to experiment with it. But certainly, what I do here is I'm only looking for a tiny little bit of compression, like maybe 1 to 1.5 dB of compression, and that basically what that does is that brings everything together, and I mix through this compressor. So this compressor is turned on at the very start of the mix, and I leave it, and I mix through it. And periodically, I will be going back through as plugins are being added and as gain is increasing. I will go and I will adjust this threshold so that we're keeping our gain reduction to, a nice small amount. So basically, we're just taking the peaks, basically. And then I work from right to left when I mix, and I start with my buses here. This is where 90% of my mix gets done. And usually with this button here engaged, the mono button. That guy is usually engaged from the moment I start mixing over here. And then I go all the way down. I do all this processing here, and at this point, with all the EQ and compression on the buses, at this point, the mix should be pumping. It should be fantastic. It should be sounding great. And then I will work my way down, and I'll start, I'll just listen through the song on a loop from start to finish. And as I'm listening, anything that kind of like sticks out to me as being a problem, as being an issue, I will go and deal with over here on the individual channels. Like these horns here just needed the low end cleared out of them, but they didn't need anything else. So I just put a high pass filter on all of them. The Fender Rhodes needed some low mid-range cut here. And the piano needed much the same, but it also needed a little low end boost as well. And I needed to give it some upper mid boost as well, so that it cut through a bit more. I believe my wife has just arrived from her night out, which is cool. So I do all of that, and I don't really do anything. I set up these guys. I set up my delay and reverb, but I don't really do anything with them until the end of the mix, pretty much. So I've got the mix sounding fantastic in mono. By this point, I'm usually so into this mix that I've forgotten that the mono button is engaged. And at that point, I'm ready to start doing ambient effects, reverbs, and delays. And that's when I kick the mono button back to stereo, and I start doing that with ambient effects. And again, if once I've opened it up to stereo, I find that there are still 1 or 2 little EQ issues, I'll go and fix those. But pretty much the last thing I get to in a mix is the vocal. And there's a good reason for that. And that is, I work on a theory that what you mix last, you mix loudest. And I'm just going to go and just take a quick look at the chat over here and make sure that you guys can see what I am doing. And it looks like you can. That's cool. And you guys are kind of talking amongst yourselves, which is cool. If you've got questions, guys, get posting them as we go, okay? And I'll try and catch them once we've finished this, okay? Alrighty, so the last thing I do is vocals, because what you mix last, you mix loudest. That's my theory. And so again, I start with the vocal bus, and then I will do whatever I need to do over here if I need to do it. In the case of this song, I mean, this song is already mixed, and all I did was I just took off all the processing for the lead vocal. So imagine we're at that point where we are ready just to do the vocal. I am going to hit the mono button. We're going to use the fat channel because the fat channel is cool. So we're going to use the standard EQ and the high pass filter. We can use the high pass filter to clear out a lot of the low end. Now, I actually recorded this pretty well, this vocal pretty well. So there's not going to be a huge ton of low end rumble in this. There will be some, because there always is, inevitably. So we will have a listen, and we will play with the high pass filter a bit. And then we'll have a listen to what we might need to do EQ wise. And we're just going to use just the standard EQ here. I could use the passive, I could use the vintage. But a lot of you guys that are on these streams are probably not into doing this just yet and getting these guys to work, because particularly this passive one, it's only a 3-band EQ. But the cool thing about this is that you can, in the low and the high frequency regions, you can boost and cut at the same frequency. So let's say at this 30 dB frequency area here, I could do a 2 dB boost, but I also could do a 2 dB cut. And the cool thing about that is that that provides just some unique characteristics to the sound of this particular EQ, that you can do that. Now, does this mean that the boost and the cut are canceling each other out? That's not how this EQ works. They don't cancel each other out. That's the clever bit with this particular EQ. But we're not going to use this guy. And likewise, we're not really going to use this guy either. This one is a 4-band, so you got low mids, high mids, and a high frequency. And these ones have got specific frequency points, like 35, 60, 110, 220, and so on. And then the high one is just it's a fixed high frequency point. But we're not going to use this one. We are just going to use the standard one. All right, so let's make a start, and let's get to listening to this vocal, and we'll start cleaning out this vocal and start making it shine, because it's going to sound a bit different than everything else to start with, because everything else is just using the Pro EQ and the compressor. So by using some analog compression in particular, we are by default going to get a bit of a different and unique sound. And that's what you want to do when you're mixing your vocal. Use some different plugins that you're not using in your mix. Be strategic about it. So in the case of this song, I'm using Pro EQ and compressor on all the other elements of the mix. But I'm going to treat my lead vocal and my vocal double, I'm going to treat those two things as one vocal, essentially. But I'm going to use different plugins, a different EQ, a different compressor. I may even stack compressors here, which is a really, really cool technique for getting your vocal to really come forward in the mix. It's a fantastic little technique to use. So by doing that, you're going to get a different sound for the vocal compared to everything else. So you're going to make it shine by the fact that you're using different plugins to everything else. So that's a cool little technique to use. Don't always use the same plugins that you've used throughout the mix. You know, even if you are limiting yourself to one EQ, one compressor for the whole mix, you know, make sure that you're using something slightly different, a different EQ, a different compressor for the vocal, so the vocal stands out. I would also argue the same for any other instruments that are really important to this song, like, for example, the soprano sax. The soprano sax pretty much plays little bits and pieces, little phrases here and there throughout the song. Plus, it has a little solo section of its own, and then the soprano sax guy just goes a bit nuts at the end of the song as well. So there's a bit of a feature there. So this is a featured instrument, and the vocal is the feature as well. So I want these two to stand out as much as possible, and the way we do that is by using different plugins. That'll give you different characteristics, different tonal qualities, different harmonic saturations, distortions, whatever you can do to make these two guys stand out in the mix. That's what we're going to do. All right, so enough waffling. Let's get to this vocal.
Here I am, and I'm staring at my phone. Don't understand. I can't wait for when you're home. There'll be wine and sweet recline. Close my eyes, see the sailors spend their pay. My heart cries that I could never walk away. Love comes from above. My Chanel, do you not know? No matter where you go, we'll walk hand in hand to our promised land. And my world fills up with light. I'm supposed to know that I'm gonna do what's right. But drink wine, everything's just fine. My Chanel, do you not know? And I'm staring at my phone. Don't got no plan. I can't wait for when you're home. There'll be wine and sweet recline. I close my eyes, see the sailors spend their pay.
All right, so that's coming along nicely. Cleaned out a lot of the low mid here, as well as some high pass filtering. Might just pull that back just a fraction, actually, to about there. So we cleared out some of this low mid build up here, which is pretty typical of this particular room, recording in my particular room, because it's a 9x7. It's a small room. You're going to get some of this low end build up. Even with acoustic treatment and bass trapping and that kind of stuff, you're still going to get it. It's just par for the course with a small studio space like this. So get that out as early as possible. And then a little bit of air at the top there, pulling out a little bit of 2K here to get rid of some of that nasally harshness that my voice in particular has. So I think we've got a pretty good overall tone for both the both the voices here, the lead vocal and the double. The double comes in at the chorus here. So let's just take a quick listen to that.
My Chanel, do you not know? No matter where you go, we'll walk hand in hand into our promised land.
Okay, cool. Sounding pretty good to me, to my ears. So next, now we've got some nice EQ going on there. Notice I'm not really doing anything over here. I haven't touched these two guys. When I mixed this the first time, never felt I needed to. I felt I could do, I could treat these two guys as one on the vocal bus and not really bother about doing anything over here. And revisiting the vocal again, mixing this afresh tonight. Haven't touched this song at all day. Haven't really listened to it, to be honest. So, you know, I'm kind of doing this live in front of you guys. And I'm thinking much the same thing. I don't want to do anything on the actual tracks themselves. Because what I would do if I did, it was I'd end up doing EQ here, compression here, and just duplicate it across, copy it across to the vocal double. I'm thinking, well, if I do that, that's like 3 or 4 plugins times 2. That's 8 plugins. Well, that's taking up some of my RAM there. Why not just treat them as one and just use, you know, 2 or 3 plugins over here and, you know, achieve essentially for me the same result. Okay, let's just flip back over to the chat and see what you guys are saying. Are you guys still talking amongst yourselves, or have you got any questions about what I'm doing here? You guys are talking about headphones. Fred says, so is it safe to say mix in mono and then change it back to stereo when complete and finished to the sound you're wanting? Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And the reason there is, you know, I'm not mixing in mono because I'm pig-headed. Kato says, sorry to interrupt, unbelievable news from LA. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about horrendous fires in LA, and it's not great. What's that? Simon Phillips's house, drums and studio burned to the ground in LA fires. Wow. Oh, poor Simon, he must be devastated. His drums are, I think he's used the same drum set for 30 years, 40 years maybe. And his studio is amazing. That's a really sad thing to hear. Thank you for posting that. Yeah, so going back to mixing in mono, Fred, I think we've talked about this before. I don't mix for mono. So, I mean, this is a common misconception. I'm not mixing for mono. I'm not mixing for my final mix. Excuse me. I'm not mixing for my final mix to be a mono mix. There's no point in that. Because, you know, we don't listen in in some respects, we don't listen in mono. Although there isn't a good argument for me anyway, that actually, unless you're wearing headphones or unless you're sitting right in the center, the apex of that triangle in your speakers, in those situations, yes, you're listening in stereo. But at all other times, you are listening in mono, which is why it is really important that your mix sounds just as good in mono as it does in stereo. And the other thing that mixing in mono does for you is it forces you to separate each element out when they are on top of each other by EQ and compression. So it, you know, because otherwise what you can do, because ostensibly we're in stereo, what you can do is say, well, I've got these guitars, why don't I just put them, you know, either side of each other? It's the same acoustic guitar. Why don't I just put one on the left, one on the right? Neither of them shall touch each other. There won't be any phase cancellation. There won't be any frequency masking because they're on opposite sides of the speakers. You're not going to notice it. Well, that's fine if you're sitting in the apex. or if you're wearing earbuds or headphones, that's fine. You're not going to experience that. But what if you're in the kitchen with the stereo on in the lounge? Well, by the time the audio comes out of those two speakers and bounces off all of the reflective surfaces in your room or in your lounge, and then bounces off the walls and surfaces in the kitchen and gets to your ears, by the time it gets to your ears, that audio is summed to mono. It just is. That's just the nature of acoustics. That's just the nature of physics. That's what happens. It is summed to mono by the time it gets to you. And what you can end up with is, if you've not got properly EQ'd elements, those elements just collapse in on top of each other because they are, there are frequencies masking each other. They are fighting for space in the frequency spectrum. So if you've got that, but it sounds good in your headphones and it sounds good in your monitors, in the sweet spot, because that's where we sit when we mix, you can fool yourself into thinking that it's great until you go walk down the hallway, and then you find that a lot of those elements just start falling into each other. So that's why I mix in mono. For me, that's the most compelling argument for mixing in mono. I know that my good friend Jonny would disagree with me heartily, but that for me is the best argument. So that's that for mixing in mono. And then, yes, I would finish my mix in stereo, making my final round of tweaks in stereo, making sure that it sounds, you can hear every element clearly in mono and in stereo. And if I can't, then I keep going. I keep going with EQ until I can. All right, so let's get to compressing these vocals. And we're going to stay right here on the bus for this, I think. And we may bring in another fat channel to put another compressor in here. We'll see how we go with this. Now, I like this fat channel FET compressor, but it can be a little bit cumbersome to handle at times. So I apologize if you get the vocal coming through a little bit too loud. But yeah, let's get to it.
Here I am, and I'm staring at my phone. I can't wait for when you're home. That sweet recline. From above.
Yeah, now we're absolutely slamming that, and now we're going to back it off.
My Chanel, do you not know? No matter where you go, we'll walk hand in hand into our promised land.
Open up the attack a little bit.
You open the door, and my world fills up with light. I'm sliced to the core, but I'm gonna do what's right. We'll drink wine, everything's just fine. My Chanel, do you not know? No matter where you go, we'll walk hand in hand. Oh, and my world fills up with light. I'm sliced to the core, but I'm gonna do what's right. We'll drink wine, everything's just fine. My Chanel eyes see the sailors spend their pay. My heart cries, but I could never walk away from my love. from above. My eyes see the sailors spend their pay. My heart cries, but I could never walk away. For my love comes from above. My Chanel.
Alrighty, so it took a little while to dial in there, but we got it, I think. I'm pretty happy with how that's sounding. Now, what typically you can do, you could just leave it at that and just have the one compressor on there, but you can in fact stack compressors, which is a technique I do use from time to time. Not every song needs it. I don't think this song needs it, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyway. If everyone's happy with that, let's see if we got any other fun questions here. Remember to click that like button. Yeah, thank you. So instead of recording 2 tracks with guitar and panning one left and one right, just record it in stereo then. If you've got good stereo mics, yes, you can do it like that. However, beware of phase issues. The more mics you have on an instrument, the more you are likely to encounter phase issues, unless you position your mics in such a way that the audio hits both mics. If you've got 2 mics, if you're doing stereo miking, you need to ensure that audio is going to hit both mics at exactly the same time. If it hits one before the other, then you're going to get phase issues. And you're going to have to work out, you're going to have to do a little bit of phase aligning, and then you're probably going to have to do some polarity adjusting. So I'm not saying don't do 2 passes and pan one left and right. I'm saying do that. What I am saying is beware how you EQ those so that you make space for each guitar in the mix if they were collapsed to mono, which is why I do it in mono, so that I make sure that those 2 guitars are away from each other in terms of the frequency spectrum. So if I was to do, for example, if I was to do, I don't know, a 2 dB cut at 1.5K on one guitar, then I would do a 2 dB boost at the same point on the other guitar. It's called complementary EQ. Where you boost on one, you cut on the other. Where you cut on one, you boost on the other, so that basically you get this kind of interlocking effect with the EQ between the 2 guitars. Skip says, sorry, dog, drug me. Have you been drugging your dog? Yeah, I think the correct past participle of to drag is dragged. Otherwise, to me, that says you're drugging your dog, which I'm sure you're not doing. But that's okay. So let's continue for a minute. I'm happy to overrun a little bit here, guys, because I know I'm taking up a little bit of time. But what you can do is I could bring in another fat channel here, and I could just use the compressor here, and I could go straight into the tube compressor, and we could get another stage of compression going here, which could fatten up this vocal and really bring it forward. Now, this song, I don't think it needs this, but I'm just showing you this is a technique you can apply. So let's give this a try and see what we end up with.
And I'm staring at my phone. Don't have a plan. I can't wait for when you're home. There'll be wine and sweet recline. I close my eyes, see the sailors spend their pay. My heart cries, but I could never walk away. For my love comes from above. Don't got no plan. I can't wait for when you're home. There'll be wine and sweet recline.
Yeah, I don't think this needs this at all. I think this is probably over compressing the vocals. So we would probably remove this, to be honest. But there you go. That's pretty much how I approach getting a vocal to shine, is by using different plugins, different EQs, different compressors, and then dialing them in appropriately. So what we ended up with on the compressor here, just using 4-to-1, and then we opened up the attack a little bit so that it had a little bit more punch to it. I can open it up just a little bit more, so the attack is a little bit slower, and that basically means that more of the initial transient comes through, and that makes the vocal come forward a little bit more. And then a fast release. Basically, the compressor is going to release compressing the audio pretty quickly, in pretty much about 50 or 60 milliseconds there, so fairly fast. But the attack profile of the 1176 style compressor is actually pretty quick anyway. So it goes, only goes up to like 0.8 milliseconds, and the fastest is 0.02 milliseconds. So it's the attack is fast anyway. So even if I was to totally open this up right the way over here, it would certainly pop through. But it's still fairly grabby, which is why personally I would then run it through an LA2A, which is a slower attack style compressor, and it would just smooth it out a bit more.
And I'm staring at my phone. Don't have no plan. I can't wait for when you're home. There'll be wine and sweet recline. I close my eyes, see the sailors spend their pay. My heart cries, but I could never walk away. For my love comes from, for my love comes from, for my love.
Yeah, so on that line there in particular, this is where this compressor is really actually doing a pretty good job. Because on this line with the compressor, with no compression, you can hardly hear the for my, the first two words. The for my gets pretty much lost, but with the compressor engaged,
My love comes from,
you can hear it much more clearly.
my love comes from above.
And that's pretty much what you want from a compressor, particularly on this style of music. So I hope that was helpful, guys. And we've got about 10 minutes, I would suggest now, for taking some questions. So if you guys are up for that, let's do it. Oh, Khalik is in the building, but I didn't know he was here. Was he? I don't know. I see Khalik being mentioned. I don't know if he's here. If you're here, Khalik, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. John says, Skip, I knew it was a matter of time till the drug dogs got you. LA fires are bad. It is affecting Khalik also, says Woodbeast. Yeah, it would be his neighborhood for sure. So I guess, we need to certainly be praying for all the folks affected in LA by these horrendous fires. I don't think I've ever seen fires quite like them in LA in pretty much my entire life. So let's see. Fred asks, is there a specific order using the fat channel to have the EQ, compressor, etc. lined up in order. You can reverse them. Personally, I prefer to EQ into a compressor rather than the other way around. So let's see. I'll show you how to do that if you're not aware of how to do that. That's easy enough done. So you see this arrow here between the equalizer and the compressor. You can reverse them, so you can have the compressor first, or you can have the EQ first. And personally, I prefer to EQ into a compressor, and I might even do some EQ after it as well. So what I might do is I might do subtractive EQ here, leave this little boost up top as flat, so I'd probably turn that off, do my high pass filtering, do my clear out at the bottom here, compress, and then go into another EQ. It might even be a completely different EQ. I might use the Neve style or the Pultec, actually. Might even use the Pultec style EQ and do the boost after compression that way, just to give the boost to the top with a nice smoothed out and compressed signal. So yeah, you can do it that way, and you just press this little arrow here, and that does the job. So hope that helps. Let's see what else is there. Skip says you can change the order. Yep. Peter says, "Do you have any experience of recording and or mixing screaming vocals?" I don't actually. It's not a style of music that I work with at all. But I would suggest if you are recording those that you do not record them hot at all, because you don't need to, because the dynamic range of a screamo vocal is going to be massive. Because you're basically going to be screaming, so there's going to be a lot of volume going on there. So if you're doing screamo, you want to ensure that your vocalist is not on top of the mic for the whole time, because otherwise that's how you'll overload the thing. So what you want to do, I would suggest, is when the vocalist is really belting it, really screaming it loud, is get them to back off the mic a little bit. So they probably want to be somewhere between 12 to 18 inches away from the mic in the first instance. And then, they probably want to lean back a little bit when they're really going for it with the scream. And then when, when they're doing that dynamic contrast and they're a little bit quieter, then they can lean in towards the mic a little bit more. So that way you're kind of doing a little bit of compression up front just by the singer using the mic in a really, really good and constructive way. Then secondly, with compression, with EQ, you probably want to pull out 2K a fair amount, because screamo is going to have, when you scream, you open up that part of your vocal cords quite a lot. So you would want to compress quite a bit, and you probably want to compress, above 4:1 ratio. You're probably looking at 8:1, and you're probably wanting to do quite a lot of compression. And then making that up with makeup gain. But again, be careful with makeup gain, because you're going to raise the noise floor when you do that. Let's see. Just Bob says, for vocals, would you want to compress the vocal first and add reverb to the compressed vocal? Right, not compress the reverb as well. Well, I don't put reverbs directly onto channels. I do sends, which means they are usually a post-fader send. So yes, the vocal is being EQ'd and compressed first before a copy of that being sent to the reverb. So the reverb is then not, so there's a nice balanced signal going into the reverb. So it's not like all over the place. So the reverb isn't like really intense and then really not intense, depending upon the dynamic range of the signal. Probably the order of things with doing post-fader sends is that it goes top to bottom through the chain on the channel, and then it gets sent to the reverb after that. And I would I would run that reverb through a high pass filter as well, so you're getting so that you're not the reverb is not affecting any low end whatsoever of your vocal. That's what I would do personally. Woodby says, when you master, do you try both mono and stereo mixes? Usually I get sent stereo mixes for mastering. I don't really see any point in mastering a mono mix. Yeah, I don't really see the point of doing that. There you go. That's probably sounded a little bit blunt and wasn't really meant to, but yeah, pretty much I don't master mono because the end result that you're going to send out to a radio station or what have you, or put up on SoundCloud is not going to be mono. It's going to be stereo. The mono mixing is to do with EQ and compression, getting the elements separated. That's it. Mixing in mono is a tool for getting the best separation possible so that when you flip out to stereo, you don't get any collapsing. Mastering software I have allows me to stereoize a mono track. Yeah, those kind of things, what they tend to do is they tend to just turn up the sides. Like the binaural pan in Studio One is a great little plugin and gives you a great sense of width at the end. So what you would do with the binaural pan is essentially you're turning up the extreme sides of the mix. That's all it's doing. The binaural pan gives you a sense of space, sense of width. Doug Lyon says, post-fader sends. I thought Studio One majority send technique was the default pre-fader. Why post? Yeah. Sorry, I might have confused you there. I think I meant pre-fader sends. Yeah. If they are blue, they are pre-fader. If they are yellow, they are post-fader. I think I have that the right way around. I do sometimes get that the wrong way around. And usually I have to be corrected when I do that. But yeah, I believe the sends in Studio One are defaulted to pre-fader sends. So basically, the audio goes through the inserts chain before it goes to reverb or delay or whatever it's sent to, unless you have it set to post fader, in which case it would go right through the whole fader before it gets to wherever it's being sent. So yeah, I apologize, Doug, if I confused you there. I did not intend to. Yes, I for the most part, for reverbs and delays, I just use the standard default Studio One pre-fader send. I only use post-fader if I'm doing parallel processing. You know what? I think I'm getting that the wrong way around. But there we go. I need to sort my brain out on that one. It's not that I don't know what I'm doing with sends. I do. It's just I very often get the two backwards in my head. So I apologize. James says you can choose either. Yes. Skip says last time I flipped out to stereo was in the 70s. Yes. And of course, as Woodbeast helpfully points out, don't forget quad. And don't forget 7.1 surround sound. So I hope my little demo here on mixing vocals so you get them to stand out in your mix was helpful. If it was, feel free to leave a comment. You can either do that now in the chat or you can do that afterwards on the replay of this video. That'd be really cool. But pretty much that's my approach to mixing vocals. I tend to use just a completely different set of plugins from the rest of the mix. And that really helps. And then, of course, mixing it last also really helps because I'm going to mix it loudest because I want it to be up front. Some folks start the other way around. You know, they start with the vocal and then they build everything around the vocal. That's definitely one way to do it. And I think you can get just as good results from whichever way you choose to do it. Whether you're going to choose to start with the feature sounds, the feature instruments, the vocal and anything else, like in this case, the soprano sax, and then build all the other instruments around that. Post is just to click on the send slider button. Yes, it is. That's right, and it changes color. Yeah. So yeah, so I hope that was helpful, guys. And we're at 1:05 in the morning here. Sorry, I'm kind of reading the chat and it's super speeding by. John asks, when will you have a super chat button? I have to get past 1,000 subscribers before I get that, because he has like 13,000 subscribers. I don't. Yeah, I have PayPal. I can put the PayPal link in. Hang on. Let me go get that, and I'll put that in the chat. Pull out my little drawer here. Yeah, if you really feel like you would like to donate, I'm not compelling anybody to, but if you really would like to, I've just put the link there, paypal.me/Jonny Lipsham, and feel free to donate whatever your heart compels you to. But I personally am not compelling anybody to donate anything. But yeah, if that's how you feel you would like to bless me, to help me keep doing what I'm doing, then that would be fantastic. And as Woodby says, I do have a dream, which is to be able to get back over to the United States. I've not been back for 10 years because simply I just can't afford it. And my sister lives in Chicago, and I've not seen her in 10 years. So it would be wonderful if I could get across there. And it would also be pretty awesome if I could meet some of you folks as well. You know, if you're around the Chicago area, or, you know, kind of within a reasonable traveling distance by public transport, I'd be happy to come out to you guys. So I hope that was helpful. Somebody is messaging me. Let me just go and see who that was. Okay, I'll get back to him later. Alrighty. Thank you very much, everybody. Bobby says link doesn't work. Really? Okay, let me test the link and make sure that it does. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let me just see if I can fix that for you guys. Copy. All right, let's try this one. That's funny that didn't work. Yeah, you might need to paste that one into the browser and see if that works. I don't know why that didn't work. Strange. Because it has definitely worked in the past. That's weird. Fred says it's not working either. All right, so I'm getting the message, guys, that it's not working. If you paste that paypal.me/Jonny Lipsham into your browser, it should take you there. Let me go to see your page and just make sure that it works. Yeah, www.paypal.me/Jonny Lipsham. Let's see if we can get this to work. Second link didn't work either. All right, oh, for goodness sake. Try this, because this one definitely works because I'm looking at that screen. Don't know why that wouldn't work. I mean, this is where it goes to, folks. This is that link there, paypal.me/Jonny Lipsham, and this is it here. This is my paypal.me page right here. This is what it looks like, so it should take you to exactly this. Skip says there's a second link called payskip.com I can post. You're funny. But yeah, that's what it should take you to, guys. Should take you to this over here. This is what you should get. www.paypal.me/Jonny Lipsham. And this is my link here. So, and this is the link that I copied in to the stream. So it should work. Try putting the link on all one line without a break. Well, that's just how it posts in the stream. Okay. I can't change that. It's because my username is Jonny Lipsham Studios. It takes up like half of the chat screen. That's why it's on 2 lines. So there's no break in the link. So I know that this link absolutely works. Bobby says, copy and paste, guys. It works that way. There you go. Woodbeast wants me to tell my story about my sister. My sister lives in the Chicago area. She's been there for 25 years, more or less. She's also lived in Pittsburgh as well, a little bit. Insert a blank line first. Yeah, just copy and paste it, guys. It'll work. Copy and paste it into your browser, and it'll work, okay? Should not be a problem. Yeah, so my sister's story, yeah, she's been there for 25 years, and I've seen her maybe, let me think, maybe 3 times in those 25 years, more or less. She got married in 1997, so I flew out there. And oh, hang on, if we lost the feed, that's a little bit weird if that's happened. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Let me just see if I can fix that. Okay, that's weird. I don't think you guys can see me anymore. Oh no, this stream is not ending well. I don't know why that is. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see me now. No, camera's died. Oh dear goodness me. See if that clears it up. Okay, I don't know why you can't see me, but I'm so it's probably best if I sign off here at this point. Oh, there we go. I think we were back then for a second. Oh, chaotic end to a stream. I do apologize, guys. Doug says, I've donated to Jonny a couple of times in the recent past, and it has always worked for me. Well, thank you very much for that. Just Bob says, my boss is from Edinburgh. Sorry if I spelled the city wrong. No, you spelled the city correctly. You just spelled Scotland wrong, but that's okay. John says, don't panic. Yeah, I don't know why I don't know why you can't see me anymore. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know why. Okay, I think I fixed it. Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't work in Firefox. That's got to be an issue with Firefox, to be honest, because it works in Edge, it works in Internet Explorer, and it certainly works in Chrome. So don't know. Anyway, it is 1:15. We've overrun by about 10 minutes. So I hope that this this demonstration and this live stream was helpful to you. And I'm going to say goodnight to you all now at 1:15 in the morning, because I need to go and get to my bed. So thanks ever so much, everybody, for coming. I think we peaked at about 25, which was really, really nice, and some good questions there. So yeah, so I hope all the stuff on vocal mixing there was really helpful. That's how I do it. You guys might have a different method. By all means, post a comment after the show is done and let me know what you do for mixing vocals. It'd be certainly very interesting to see what you guys do. But that's what I do. I use a different EQ and a different compressor, and sometimes I will stack compressors. Depends upon the song. But certainly I quite like going for compression, going an 1176 into an LA2A style compressor, and using a fast attack compressor first and a slower attack compressor second. Or sometimes the other way around. Sometimes I'll use a slow attack compressor first and a fast attack compressor second. Depends what is required for the particular song. So there you go. That tends to be my vocal mixing methodology. Go try it out. Go try out stacking compressors if you've never done it before. It's cool fun. Takes a little bit of getting to grips with. And at first, you'll overcompress and you'll squash it and you'll get it pumping. But you'll get there eventually with it, and you'll get it working for you. So until next time, as I say, not sure whether I'm doing a stream on Sunday. If I am, I will make an announcement to that effect. So until then, I'll see you very soon. Good night.